Class Action Park. Here is something I kind of learned about a couple weeks ago. I didn't know anything else about it. I was like, I like documentaries. I don't know if I've said it enough on this channel before. I really like documentaries. Actually, one of the filmmaking studies I'd love to go into or I'd love to produce is documentaries. I've said it before and some other stuff. I love the obsessive natures that some people have to the point where they want to make a documentary about it, or they're so passionate and interested in something that they want to make a documentary about that thing and talk about something they love. So Class Action Park, it brings a lot of things I like. Documentaries, amusement parks, because I'm a big amusement park guy, and people getting hurt, because I'm a man, and I like people getting hurt. But this was pretty scary. Like, I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was going to be about this park from the 80s and kind of in the 90s that was this interesting place that didn't have a lot of safety regulations. The people that worked there weren't the best. There's some crazy stuff happening. People got hurt. But it's kind of more than that, and it makes me kind of just feel something I've always felt towards water parks for the most part, is that there's no way these are safe. For me, it was always like, how can these places be clean? Because if it's a water park, you got hundreds of people in the same body of water, really packed together. You don't know what's going on inside those people, or what like their body is, or how they're feeling, or any of that. You could get sick instantly. You could get a number of diseases quickly. There was an outbreak of herpes at my local hot tub in the swimming pool. Like, like you just don't know. But this was just like, when you combine all that fear of not knowing what's going on there with people who are too lazy to care, have no interest in doing it, and just so badly made and poorly executed, it's a recipe for disaster. Class Action Park is the story of Action Park, which is it's a water park from the 80s, and it was in Vernon, New Jersey, and it was like built up to be this next big thing because it was kind of, you know, further away from Orlando and Anaheim, so you kind of had to build like a new area there. And as the story progresses, you kind of see the people involved, like Gene Movahill, who was the man who had all the money, who made it big. He got a lot in the stock markets, decided he's going to make a park here, get a lot of tourist people in. It worked for the most part, but then you just see how everything else was made. He made it on the cheap, he made it pretty unsafe, and you just see the differences in you just kind of see how the attractions worked out and what they were made from, and it's terrifying. Because when you combine this guy who is doing it for all the wrong reasons and he just wants to make money, you suddenly realize you're gonna do a lot of bad stuff. The slides were very poorly executed, some of the designs were terrible, a lot of people got hurt right away, and some people even got killed, which you're just like, how can a park stay open if somebody dies? Like, sure, it happens before in a lot of places, but if it's like a one-time thing, I understand. But if it's more than 5, you got a problem, and you should probably not be opening that park. And it's just fascinating to see that because, like I said, it's the 80s. I'm not an 80s kid, so I don't have that connection or nostalgia for a lot of things, but just hearing the way some of these employees were talking about how it's like, they could do whatever they want. They could just leave home, come back at supper time, and do whatever they want. And no supervision. Just there's like a carefree spirit. It was like the last of that era where people didn't worry about where their kids were in the day. They could just get on their bikes and leave. I find that to be absolutely terrifying because I cannot picture. I just can't picture myself being in that situation where I wasn't telling people where I was going, like my parents or any of that. Or even if I had a kid now, like I couldn't imagine a world where I'd be like, yeah, just come home at this time. I wouldn't worry. I'd just be like, you got to tell me where you're going, what you're doing, and why you're doing it, and be safe about it. You can't just leave and then come back. It's just weird. So that's a really interesting part of this documentary too. Just like there's this kind of this nostalgia for you were allowed to do whatever you want. You could go anywhere. You could have fun. And there was no worry about it because that's what it was. Just a bunch of horny, drunk kids doing whatever they wanted all the time, and nobody really worried about it. That's pretty terrifying. I find that absolutely frightening now just to think about, because like I would never do that. I've never been inclined just to go out and adventure. I've never had that. I like to have a plan. It's just weird to see that angle of things too. And as an amusement park enthusiast, somebody who does enjoy that stuff, I always find it like seeing one that is poorly made, or you could just tell what its intentions were. Its intention kind of was, and they talk about this in the documentary too, the intention of Action Park was, you're trying to make this experience that you can control, you can choose your own adventure, but the point of an amusement park is for the allure of that, where you think you are in control, but everything's actually staged out so perfectly that you have the adrenaline rushing through you while still being safe and secure. So when you take away that element of things, you're left with a disaster, and there was a lot of disaster happening at this place. and it sounds very terrifying. And I just like, you get all these people that worked at the park talking about it in the documentary. You get some of the like guests that went there, and all of them were like, as soon as some people started to get hurt, you realize this was not a good idea. They didn't really take care of the people who got injured. They would just spray them with a spray, see if they would be all right. They didn't change on the attractions so that once somebody got hurt or killed, they just kind of left it the same. And you're like, this is not a good idea. How is this happening? And why is it doing this? I think it's terrifying to think about. And it made me not want to go to a water park again, which is, hey, I mean, I probably won't. I just still think it's so dirty. And knowing that if there's just like one thing wrong, there's like one loose piece on a slide, there's like one bolt or something sticking out and you're going down that slide, oh, that could be painful. That could not be fun. Like that is just scary to me and terrifying. So there's just so much factors in this documentary, like the corporate greed, the lack of supervision, the adolescent youth not being told what to do or take authority into question, and just the lack of people wanting to have their own adventure. You can find all these bad ideas, and suddenly you get a place that looks really fun. It looks like a lot of people will enjoy themselves, and some people probably did. Like, there wasn't an accident every day, but then you realize it's not safe, and we need to up the standards for certain stuff like that. So it's a really fascinating documentary. I enjoy watching these kind of programs too, because it takes something that you know about, but it shows you everything that was like a part of it and everything that went to it, like every part of the staff, what their involvement was, what the rides were made of, how these things happened, all the involvement in that. And it was just fascinating to see that this one man's vision was so unorganized and had no like forethought that he could just build whatever he wanted and nobody told him no, and somehow it worked. He made money, and then he didn't have to pay for a lot of lawsuits because he just was an asshole about it. That's so fascinating to me. And this was such an interesting documentary. It's one that I think a lot of people will enjoy, especially if you are of that 80s era. And you're like, wow, we really were reckless back then. And we could do a lot. So, Class Action Park, it's a very fascinating show, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it. So I am going to give it a 7 out of 10. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.